Gary, I don't know anyone that thought that that Michigan game was going to go that bad, but here we are. We're going to keep this breakdown of the game rather short and ask you to tell us in the comments what you think. For me, I think that the Huskers are lucky. Jim Harbaugh apparently has a soul. Unlike Urban Meyer, who would have put 70 points on the board, kept his starting defense out there, risked injury to prove a point 70-0. I think it was that bad of a loss, even though I'm okay with it because I expect Matt Rhule's first season to be terrible at worst, mediocre at best. And I just think that Husker Nation really got to see themselves in the mirror, the lights fully on, and we know what we are now. Players know where they stand now. There's a lot of work to be done, and that's okay. And after the post-game presser, call me what you will, but I'm very pleased with Matt Rhule. I think he gets exactly what's going on and is likely doing the right things because he understands what's actually going on. I don't think you can fix something if you don't truly understand the problem.
I agree. To me, it's kind of a tale of two stories, and he talked about it in the stream where you have the football side of it, the plays, play calling, the coaches, the recruiting, the players, the execution, the culture, all that. And then you have the fan base and the national media that will dissect things and react on a week-to-week, game-to-game, play-to-play, whatever basis, right? And an example I had used was after the first 2 weeks, people were like, same old Huskers, Rhule wins no or one, or whatever games his first year, that's what this is going to be. And then we played two inferior teams and looked good, and expectations somehow all of a sudden jumped to Nebraska was going to be in the game, like I thought, all the way to they're going to upset the number 2 team in the nation. And it's just, I don't think there's a lot game-wise to talk about. I mean, the injuries of Singleton and Reimer obviously hurt. They showed up. But I mean, I think you could have had those two plus 2 more of those two for the other linebacker in their safety spot, and you're still getting boat raced, right? So it's pretty clear cut and dry that Nebraska's probably not as bad as they were last year. They're definitely not as good as top 25 teams in the country. Right. So I took a lot away from that, just from like the chat in our stream and different things you see on, like, I was watching the chat when Matt Rhule's giving his press conference and things you see on Twitter. The tempering of expectations needs to be put more into perspective. And as far as football goes, Nebraska needs to keep developing the players that have room for development. And they need to recruit guys that have higher ceilings and more room for development, and maybe higher floors to start from, right? And none of that's going to be done overnight. No matter what side of that you look at, none of that's going to be done overnight. But looking into it from, as a fan who's gone through this with several coaches over many years, and then you see Matt Rhule come in and he's an extension of that, is different than Matt Rhule and his staff starting new and being viewed as an extension of something else. So, you know, if you look at a serious relationship or marriage, you probably had a handful, if not more, of serious relationships before that. And different things along the way ended those relationships that got you to the one you're in now. And you didn't know that the one you were in now was the one until you knew, right? So there's going to be times where you have these highs and you're like, this is the one, everything's great. All signs point to yes, everything's going great. There's no downsides, there's no dips. And then something happens that creates a blowout argument, a little distrust, lack of communication, whatever it might be. And you start questioning, is this one just like the other ones? Or is this the one? And it sucks seeing that. It sucks dealing with that. And it sucks having what you interpreted as a thing be put in question, right? And I feel like that's kind of where it's at, because you and I didn't want Matt Rhule originally, especially when they were talking about, oh, he's the front runner, things like that. We had our guys who wanted, I wanted Fickle, things like that. But when we got Matt Rhule, it's like, okay, we have what we have. There's no sense in complaining about it. We don't control the situation. Hope everything works out. We listen to what he says. And I think we both have agreed that we've bought into everything he said, everything he's talked about, and seeing what he's doing. So going back to the relationship type deal, as you get through those rough spots, you come out on the other side better off, right? So like you have a little dip, but once you get over it, you're a little bit better, a little bit stronger. You learn a little bit more about yourselves and about each other, and you become a little bit closer, a little bit tighter. I feel like this is one of those types of things. Now, that's not to say this is going to end up as a happy marriage. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying the perspective that fans and a lot of people outside looking in need to have is this is a process that's going to go through its ups and downs. And at some point, you're going to know, okay, we did the right thing, got the right guy, and things are going to work out. Where eventually something will be so bad that it's like, you know what, this is just like the other ones. Learned a little bit, but it's time to move on. And I think 4 or 5 weeks in, 5 weeks into a season is not enough time. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to get across is like, no, this isn't acceptable. You can't just say, oh yeah, teams are going to be better than us and we're going to lose. So you lay down and get, dog walked a couple times a year. Like that. No, that's not the point. The point is acknowledging where you're at this stage of this new coaching regime, listening to what he's saying, how he interprets it, how he translates it to his team and where they go from there. And listening to his press conference, I like that he held the team accountable, but I like that he also acknowledged that's where we want to be and we're not there yet. Like, to me, there's no excuses. He wasn't making excuses because one of his top safeties and his top linebacker were out. He didn't make excuses on anything. It's just, yeah, man, we're still trying to get there. And I understand what we just watched reminded us a lot of Scott Frost, Mike Riley, maybe a little bits of Pelini, maybe not. I don't know. There was some times we had Wisconsin run for 500 yards on us or whatever. And Callahan, like, you walk it back and it's like, oh, great, more the same. But that has nothing to do with him. No more than your new big relationship has to do with your previous relationships. Yeah, there might be some things that spark up and you're like, oh, I've had this happen before. But not with this person, though. So I don't want to sound like an apologist or like it's okay to get blown out at home by a conference team. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's part of the process. It's something people have to get over. And keep this in mind. If and when we beat Illinois, depending on how we look against Maryland, their offense looks really good. Purdue, there's some winnable games on the schedule. And I hope that we don't go back to the week from Colorado to the Louisiana Tech week. So like after that bad loss against Colorado, we beat Northern Illinois. And then as we're beating or winning against Louisiana Tech, expectations went from clear down here to back up here. And now they're back down here. Like, just, we got to stay even keeled. We got to give this thing some time. We've got to let the staff show what they can and can't do as far as development and recruiting goes. And you just hope that you might have dips in the middle, but overall, from the beginning to the end of the season, you end on a higher note than what you started as a program.
Tell us what you guys think in the comments. Thank you guys for hanging out. We'll have a preview out soon for Illinois. Once again, our Discord is now open. I'll have a link in the description. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you guys soon.